Last name is Jacquard. My partner in crime, Tom Cisluski, is also here. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in chat and Tom will get you an answer. But today we're going to talk about cloud security. So specifically focused on, let's call it the Microsoft single ecosystem for cloud security, Azure, all of those types of things, all the different products that are in there. So again, I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for taking time out of, I'm sure, your busy days. And hopefully you all learned something from what we're going to go through. So we all know as IT professionals, there are a lot of security challenges, and there always have been. But over the last probably decade, it's gotten worse. So some of the challenges that we all as professionals face: visibility into security and compliance. We know compliance has become a huge factor in everything we do, securing everything, with auditors, all of those different things. Without controls in place, 68% of breaches take months or longer to discover. So again, we're looking at, hey, we got breached, and how long did it take us to find that? It's not always evident if you don't have the proper tools in place. And by tools, I don't mean just the software or hardware technology. It's also around, are we notifying? Do we have our policies configured correctly? All of those different things. In 2019, from the numbers, 95% increased in the cost of a breach. Average cost, $5.16 million. We know that the increase and sophistication of attacks has greatly increased. I mean, we're looking at a lot of the different things that are happening. Just saw a report today from CISA that, the sophistication and the amount of ransomware in 2021 significantly increased from the year before. There's increasing sophistication of what they're doing. But again, we know they're going to attack us. So what do we do about it? We need to have visibility into that. We need to have time to respond. But it's also around compliance, not just policies of our devices, our software, but policies for the architecture, organizational policies. These are the things that we have to consider when we're securing our environment. So I want to talk about zero trust. So why are we having a zero trust conversation, Mark? Well, that's a great question. So most of us are very familiar with what's called defense in depth. That's where we layer all of these different technologies on top of each other in our on-prem network. It's been done for years. It's a militaristic term. We layer defenses to prevent you from getting to the core, right? That's really what it means. We all know that security is very complex. We have many devices, users, connections, networks, all of those things, and we have all the logs from all of those different devices. We're looking at the complexity of this network. Zero trust is really the new way of looking at things, getting away from that whole defense in depth. Am I saying defense in depth is dead? No, it's not. But this zero trust framework really addresses where the new border of our network is. Where is that new border? That new border is actually identity. Everybody wants our credentials. If you're like me and you do any kind of research, you'll know that year over year, probably for the last 5 years consistently, there have been significant increases in phishing because people want credentials. We tried the old trusted network strategy. Almost all of those types of attacks that we're looking for were network-based. We're looking at DDoS. We're looking at, exploiting known holes in software because we didn't patch, all of those different things. And it was seemingly simple to secure all of this. Hey, we just buy a new product, we repurpose that other one, we layer firewalls, we put end host type products on there, and we configure those. But because it's a trusted network, we accepted lower security inside the network. Now, did we have insider threat? Of course we did. We have always had insider threat. But it was easier for those insiders because we looked at it as, hey, you're on the other side of the firewall, the other side of that device, and so we're going to trust you to a point. This is really about learning to shift that methodology, because now we're in a situation, especially over the last 2 years with COVID, our users leave the network. They're not even coming to the office anymore. They're really not behind that firewall. Their first point of ingress is where? On their router at home. So what's securing that laptop? Well, we have end hosts deployed, but it's really about our identity. We have bring your own device, mobiles, SaaS, software, as a service. So those bad actors really have shifted their mentality and methodology to specifically focus on identity. Phishing, credential theft. I mean, all of those things, because if I have credentials, I can access the network. Another thing about assets that leave the network, if I can get you to install an application that's not approved, I have persistence. I don't need your identity, or at least not all of it. But it's still about an identity because I'm looking for session cookies and all of those types of things that you've already authenticated to get me into that higher level of the network and do all those cool things I want to do as a bad guy. As security people, we're overwhelmed. I come from the days of, we didn't have SIM. How do I find that? I search logs. Do you know how long that takes? Even with automated scripts, you'll never get through them all. These are the things we want you to look at. Shifting that methodology and how you secure your network. So zero trust really is a strategy. It was originally done actually as a master's thesis for a college student, and then Forrester got a hold of it and really popularized it and published papers around it. But it does work if you do it correctly, because zero trust, one of the largest things it focuses on is users. There are all sorts of different pillars that we're going to talk about and places that you secure. But really, the strategy is to increase assurances for those assets, those datas everywhere. But the first place that we start with is usually identity, because identity, user access, is what everybody wants. If I can get user credentials, I can then use those credentials to laterally move and try to increase my level of privilege. So it is a proven strategy to harden that user access. What we're doing here is explicitly validating that trust on any access request. How are we doing that? Well, we've got multi-factor authentication. We have hello for business, to where you have to be on that device. You have to have the PIN, all of those different things. We're dynamically addressing insufficient trust in the architecture. Users, again, we're validating them at access time. We're not validating them any other time. We're not saying, okay, through the firewall with this rule on this port. We don't have to do that. Can we do that? Yes. But we're not looking at the network level. We're looking at, is this user, based on our configurations, based on all of that, are they validating the way we want? Are they coming from where they're supposed to be coming from, accessing from the device they're supposed to be accessing from? Again, it's all about securing that identity first. Do I have to start there? No, and we'll talk about that. But the other thing is modernizing SecOps. By utilizing a zero trust model, we're looking at modernizing the SecOps environment, operationalizing for rapid detection, recovery capabilities, regardless of where they are in the network. Again, this is something that we're looking to methodically roll out. And we typically take the form of direct monitoring, like access points, assets, endpoints, cloud services, focusing on those identities and those policies. And the other place we're looking at is actually our data centers. We're looking at operational technology, modernizing our workload strategies, our APIs, device security. It's all around that technology that exists. And most people don't think of this, but when you start looking at operational technology in a data center, those architectures, those things that are constraining everything in that data center, your technology could be 50 years old. Think about that. You have technology, routers, switches, all of that, that operate on that network layer that haven't changed in 50 years, or very little change in 50 years. We want to secure that. We want to build in this architecture a zero trust model. It increases security. It increases productivity over time. So looking at zero trust and what it is. First, what is it not? It's not a piece of software. It's not a product you buy. It's a framework. There are tons of articles out there on the internet that you can read about zero trust. It's an architecture model that basically institutes a deny until verified approach for access to the resources from inside and outside your network. This actually addresses challenges that are associated with the shifting security perimeter that cloud-centric and mobile workforce bring to the equation. The core principle of zero trust is maintaining strict access control. It's a concept to prevent attackers from pivoting laterally and elevating access within your environment, because that's what they want to do. Bob might only be an end user who only has access to a couple of systems. But if I can get Bob's credentials, what else can I look at on his system based on what administrators are doing, capturing that data, and then pivoting? Now, an interesting thing about Zero Trust, on the 27th of January this year, and I just read this article on the 27th of January, the U.S. federal government has put a mandate out that says that all federal systems must be compliant by the end of 2024 with a zero trust model. Now, anybody out there who has ever done federal government realizes how fast this is. I spent 4 years in the Middle East doing all sorts of cool stuff. And I spent all 4 of those years trying to get new EMC SAN equipment installed. A year after I left the Middle East, now we're into year number 5, I got an email that says, hey, look, we're finally installing those that you purchased. So you know this is really quick for the federal government. They don't do anything fast. So think about this carefully, because this methodology really can improve the security posture of your network. It looks at 3 guiding principles. Verify explicitly. Always authenticate with all the data that is available to verify that credential. Least privileged access. You don't always need to be domain admin, owner, whatever the account is. You only need that authority when you need to make a change or do something that requires that. So limit the user access with just in time and just enough access. Assume breach. Minimize the blast radius for breaches. The 2 largest blast radiuses you're going to get are identity and devices. So that's usually where I would tell people to start on a zero trust model. We want to prevent lateral movement, segmentation, by segmenting the networks, users, devices, their apps, all of those different things. So when I say assume breach, most of us as IT professionals have heard the only secure system is the one that's still in the box. I disagree with that. It's not secure. Even if I've never plugged it in, it's not secure because I don't know who built that system. I don't know what they installed. First thing I do anytime I buy a system is I wax it. I wipe it clean and start over and only install what I want installed. So if I'm looking at cloud, how do I do that? I have a policy. I could build based on a blueprint. So it looks exactly like I just wiped it. So when we look at the pillars defined by Microsoft, other people do different things, including the federal government, because they always do different things. We have identity, devices, data, apps, infrastructure, and network. Now, one of the things that I always tell people, and we at Talon add to our assessments and our advice, policy. Policy is the pillar that nobody talks about. Policy drives what we do. And we look at crosswalking all of the Microsoft products into those pillars. We have Defender for Cloud. Inside this policy, we should have organizational policies that tell us as security professionals what we're supposed to be doing. Hey, there's no personal use of the internet. There's no email use other than business directed. All of those are organizational policies. That helps me figure out what I'm supposed to be monitoring. You also have Azure policy. Defender for Cloud can apply policy, CIS, PCI. By default, your subscription has the ASC default policy based on NIST 853, a way for you to start securing your network. Pay attention to those policies. You can filter them by subgroups, but you can see all the different products just on identity alone. Azure AD, identity protection, Defender for identity. We've got Defender for cloud, Defender for endpoint, Intune, so we can see our inventory. I have all these different Defender products. This would bring a single, as we all like to say, pane of glass view that we're going to talk about. We also have Sentinel. Okay, because this is actually going to give me the ability to see all of this stuff in a single pane of glass and correlate it all to see what's going on. But these are crosswalks of what you're looking at when you're looking at a cloud environment. It also will help with on-prem because we can extend all of this not only to on-prem, but to Google Cloud, to AWS. It's all a way of extending and doing everything from a single point. So now, I always like to talk about maturity. So the reason I bring this up is, okay, I'm going to start with identity access management on my journey to zero trust. Okay. Hey, I think I've done a good job. My policy is solid. I'm not getting any real false positives from any of my products centered around identity management. So I'm going to move up and I'm going to secure my devices. That's my next pillar. I want to get up to where I've secured everything. This is my goal. Now, how long is it going to take me to get from phase one all the way up here? Well, that kind of depends on the number of jobs you have. So if my whole focus as a security person, my boss comes to me and says, Mark, you need to work on zero trust and get it all compliant. Okay. So I work with everybody in the environment and I go step by step through every pillar. Remember the pillars right here. I have to work with a bunch of other people because I'm not an app developer, I'm not the network guy. So I have to talk to all those people. But I guarantee you, because I only have one job, it won't take me as long as if I were the SIM guy, the endpoint guy, the network guy. I got 3 other jobs that I have to focus on. So how long will it take me to get up here now? Because we know there's going to be fires, there's going to be things that I have to address. But if this is my only job, then I'm going to make it faster. And I'll have more time to be meticulous about what I do. And that's important. Now, looking at Azure. Azure cloud environment is actually the only cloud environment built by a security vendor. I know some of you are probably saying, well, Microsoft's not a security vendor. I used to be that way too, but they are. They are absolutely a security vendor. I have friends who do security for them and have for years. A couple of the military guys I trained work for Microsoft now. They earn over $10 billion a year in security revenue. That's a security company, $10 billion. They have more than 400,000 customers in Azure. 90 of the Fortune 100 use security, compliance, and identity solutions from Microsoft. 3,700 security experts. They spend more than $1 billion annually on security. Their products in 2020 detected over 6 billion pieces of malware and blocked them with Defender. Microsoft, actually like any other security company, has security researchers. They have threats that they look for. They take in over 8 trillion signals every 24 hours and evaluate those. Think about that. 8 trillion signals to say, this is good, this is bad, this is questionable. That's what we're looking at here. So yes, they are absolutely a security vendor. And again, I showed you in the zero trust map of all the different pillars of zero trust. You can use product from a security vendor, one product, one vendor, multiple products, actually, one vendor in a single ecosystem. That way, I'm not going out and spending and having to learn 20 different technologies. All of that's available to me. So when we look at a cloud kill chain model, first thing an attacker looks for is exposure, looking at the infrastructure, recon, right? So insecurely configured applications. So you didn't do everything right with your app, and now you have a hole. Log4j, right? Vulnerabilities. So what patches didn't you apply? Infected admin accounts. Something that's already there that's been compromised by somebody else. But they want that identity. Weak cryptos, all of those, weak credentials, weak passwords, all of those things can open up identity. Now, how do we get those? Once we've done that, now we have access. Virtual machines, web apps, credentials, brute force, still a commonly used tactic. So think about your Linux boxes. Most people who use SSH still to this day use username and password. Yeah, great. It's an encrypted tunnel. But you know what? It can still be sniffed. I could be a man in the middle. I could brute force. SSH brute force. A better way of doing that, public-private key pair. It's harder to crack those than it is a username and password. We have the Internet of Things devices, all the different things that are connected to the internet that we don't think about. Our phone. The next thing they're going to try and do is lateral movement. Get in, elevate those privileges, see what's in our web apps, see how those web apps maybe access SQL databases, virtual machines. But the end, the goal is usually to get to the data. What do they want to do with that data? Do they want to wipe it out? Do they want to steal it? Do they want to change their credit rating? I don't know. I mean, looking at what's going on right now in the world, there's actually ransomware out there that they want you to pay. I'll leave where this is happening. It's a global thing, but there's no intention of not deleting the data. They want you to pay to give you the encryption key, but it's still going to delete everything on your system once you pay them and get the key. Again, what is it about? But remembering this data loss is a huge financial impact. Depending on what it is, it might cost you $5.16 million or more. Depends on what they're doing with it. So looking at Defender for Cloud. Defender for Cloud is specifically designed to strengthen your cloud posture. We have Secure Score. So in a single glance, I can look and see how I stack up on apps, identity, all of those things. See how I compare to similar sized organizations. It allows me to apply policy and see if I'm compliant, where I'm not compliant. So you've got your cloud security posture management. You also have cloud workload protection that's integrated into Defender for Cloud. It brings advanced intelligence protection to your hybrid, to your Azure cloud. Again, built-in policies. We can also extend this protection to hybrid models using a product called Azure Arc. So I could deploy an Azure Arc agent to my on-prem. I can deploy it to Google Cloud, AWS, and I can manage all of that from Azure as if it existed in Azure, and I can apply all my policies, all of those things directly in that cloud. So looking at where Defender for Cloud really plays, you can see here, I have all of these, and I know it's kind of an eye chart, but I've got firewall, SQL Advanced Threat Protection, storage, Azure policy, integrated threat intelligence, those 8 trillion signals. I can extend it to the on-prem so I can enforce all of that across the entire architecture by using Azure Arc. This is really where Defender plays well because it's a single set of products to secure the whole architecture, not just what's in the cloud, but what's in different clouds, what's on-prem, all of that. And these are things we look at. Now, it is a dashboard approach to driving security. Really, why do we have all these dashboards? Well, I'm an IDS IPS guy from way back, and I'm used to watching screen scroll by and going, click, yep, that's what I want to see, and investigating it. But not everybody can do that. It's really a long process as well. Dashboards are visual. So most of the population of the entire world is visually stimulated. So those dashboards will stand out. Red is bad. We all know if our boss walks behind us on any dashboard and something is red, what is that? And they're going to want to know. But dashboards give me multiple panes that at a single glance, I can look at and say, oh, hey, I better fix that. That's bad. And I get to see what my posture looks like against all the policies I've applied, looking at the threat alerts, all of that in a single dashboard. Cloud provides the tools needed for you to harden your resources, track your posture, protect against cyber threats, streamline that management of security. Cloud fills 3 vital needs, Defender for Cloud, that when you manage security, we're always looking at improving the security of the resources and the workloads in cloud and on-prem. 1, it continuously assesses the environment. So what does that mean? So roughly, with a couple of exceptions, it's looking at everything hourly. and telling you it might take up to 24 hours to refresh the dashboard, but it's still doing it hourly and saying, hey, look, you missed this patch. You need to apply this patch. Hey, somebody changed the config. It's not secure anymore. We're looking at that security, hardening the resources, and defending that. What are the threats that I saw on the workloads, services, resources, and analyzing that and notifying you. Here's what you need to be looking at. And it's dashboard driven, so it's all in a single pane of glass, so to speak. I hate to keep saying that, but it's true. That's what we want as security people. I don't want to have to go to 15 different dashboards and then manually correlate everything. That's not what I'm looking for. Not in this day and age. That's way too much work. Then I have to, update all of that. Have to keep it all current. Have to read all the bug notifications, all of it. So looking at a security requirement, you need to continuously assess, what do we have in our environment that does that? Scanners? How often do you scan? Do you have trusted and untrusted scanners? Those are all questions you have to answer. But this continuous assessment is going to continuously update my secure score. So at a single glance, I can tell if I'm up or down. Did I regress or did I improve? The higher the score, the better. The lower the identified risk to my environment. It's all about risk. Am I going to have to accept some of that risk? Probably. Depends on your business. Depends on what's running, why you can't do something, and then setting up the best you can do to mitigate that risk. You have to secure the environment, harden the connected resources and services. So you're going to get recommendations, customized and prioritized tasks to improve your posture. You can implement a recommendation, by following the detailed recommendation steps provided in the recommendation. In many cases, you're going to get a little lightning bolt button that you can click and just say, fix it for me. I don't even have to understand it. I don't even have to know how to manage the product or understand what it does. I can click that button and say, fix it. Now, do I want to do that without reading it? Probably not. Are there some things that I don't want to do that without talking to other people? Probably, because I don't know if I'm going to break something. I don't know how they wrote an app. I'm not an app developer. I'm a security guy. So I go talk to the app developer and say, hey, look, man, I'm getting an alert that says this. Nothing happens in a vacuum. You have to talk to other people. We're not all experts in everything. I talk to the people who are. I always tell people, I don't know everything. I know everyone who does, though. I know who I need to talk to. I'm not a DBA, but I could send 5 emails right now on how to write a query for SQL, and I'll get 5 answers from friends. Defend. Detect and resolve threats to those resources and services. So, security alerts. With the enhanced security features enabled, Defender for Cloud detects threats on your resources and your workloads. They're going to appear in the portal in Defender for Cloud, and you're going to be able to see why it alerted. What's it trying to tell you? Those alerts can actually also be streamed to your SIM, SOAR solution, IT service management solutions as required. So I can stream it wherever I need it to go. I can also set up notifications, send up an email, send an email to somebody and said, hey, you need to look at this. So you can see here, a single dashboard. I have all these different panes, my secure score. Yeah, I'm at 54%. Workload protection, regulatory compliance. I have 3 policies applied. My compliance isn't looking not looking real good there, is it? I got my insights. How am I doing? My firewall manager. Inventory. What does my inventory look like? Who's healthy, who's not? Information protection. So I can see what's going on, all in a single pane of glass. And I can drill into any one of those dashboards. I can see all my different across the top bar. I can see I have 4 AWS, 4 Google Cloud, because I'm using Azure Arc and managing across that whole architecture. Wherever it is, single pane of glass. So looking at posture management with that secure score, we're looking to gain insight into the state of our security for cloud, on-prem, wherever it exists. We need to address those vulnerabilities. And we're going to get prioritized recommendations. Which one is the most important for me to fix right now? We want to improve that score. Now, why is that score so important? It's not just for us as the people managing. Most of us have heard the term ROI, return on investment. So I can tell you from personal experience, being asked after spending millions of dollars on a product, being asked by an executive, show me what that thingy is doing for us. Why is it worth the money we paid? Show me the return on investment. Well, when we first started and we deployed this, we were at 12%. Now we're at 55%. That's return on investment. And I can prove it, and I can show my boss it was worth the journey and the money, because that's what they're writing the checks. So Defender for Cloud is also going to speed up our regulatory compliance. Any one of you who has ever done regulatory compliance and trying to make everything fit, we're reading standards, we're going out there, we're trying to understand what we need to do to meet that little requirement 2.1.6. Guess what? If I apply Azure policy, let's say for PCI, to be PCI compliant, it's monitoring my environment for PCI compliance. And it's showing me where I'm failing, where I'm doing well, and what I need to do to fix it. It's granular control. It extends across all these different categories: access, compute, SQL, network, apps, all of my scores. How am I doing? What is my posture? These are the things we look at. We want to drive compliance. We want to drive security. How do we do that? If I have 10 different products, how does it show me that? And how do I translate it back into my cloud environment? Those are the things we're going to start looking at. So here, Secure Score, Defender for Cloud. Again, continually assesses your resources, your subscriptions, and the organization for security issues. It aggregates all of those findings into a single score so that I can see it at a glance. Again, remembering, higher the score, the lower the risk. These are the things we do. We're all looking at drilling into this score. And you can see all the subscriptions. Who's doing better? Well, This subscription is at the top. In this example, at least Contessa Hotels isn't last, but we've got a long way to go. It helps you understand the compliance of your environment. For each subscription, we can break it down where you need to focus. And it's all, again, it was done from a single dashboard to drill in to get higher level understanding of what we need to do to fix the environment. So we can see all these recommendations right here. What do I need to do? Enable encryption. All of those types of things. Encrypt data in transit. All of that should be self-explanatory. We don't want our data in clear text. We want to encrypt it at rest. These are the things that we look at, and we drill into them and read the recommendations for making that happen. These are security controls that we're looking at to drive compliance and security within the environment. It's going to identify anything that's misconfigured. We may have thought everything was fine. Looking at apps, devices, users, credentials, identity, whatever you want to call them, we can see at a glance, we didn't do as good a job as we thought, or we did a great job. Which one is it? But I can drill into any of these, and I can see exactly what I need to do. Regulatory compliance. The majority of us have something we have to be compliant with. We can drive policy, and Microsoft has a ton of built-in policy. They have their own security benchmark. I can monitor AWS and Google in a single dashboard if I use Azure Arc. That benchmark policy really is going to help me fully align to the secure score. Is it the only policy I'll apply? Probably not. I have Azure Default. I have the security benchmark policy. Maybe I'm a PCI. Maybe I'm a high trust HIPAA environment. And we apply those policies. Now, the cool thing about that, okay, let's say I'm deficient on a policy. I notice it in high trust. Fixing one thing might fix 15 other things because they're all looking at the same control to secure it. And that's what we're getting here. So I fix one thing, wait 24 hours and see. My score might jump a lot further than just that one thing that I fixed based on the policies that are applied. Again, it's a world-class solution, bar none. It is a security product, and it works extremely well and does what it says it will do. I can drill down into my compliance dashboards. I can see all of my different scores, all the recommendations, the things that are broken. What do I need to do? All of these resources need to be compliant before it says I'm compliant. So I can't do just 3 of 4. I have to do all 4. Again, it's about bringing the organization into compliance with the standards that we're under from a regulatory point of view, but it's also about our organizational policy. Mapping all of that to make sure that we're getting as secure as possible. So when we look at policy, we have default, has the Azure Security Benchmark automatically assigned. But There are tons of other standards that you can employ. Specifically, NIST 853, SWIFT, Canada, Azure CIS policy. All of this, PCI. There are tons of pre-built policy that you can bring in. Now, me personally, I probably would want to get compliant with at least one policy first. Work across that one. Then deploy the rest and see where you're out of compliance. Because if I fix everything in the first one, chances are a lot of the things that would trigger from the rest of these that I apply are going to get mitigated. This is security best practice. And most regulations, other than very specific sections, have a lot of security best practice built into it. I can look at my firewall manager. This firewall manager piece here, if I drill into it, I'm going to see how I stack up on all my virtual hubs, virtual network firewall coverage, DDoS protection across my VNets, all of that. So in Azure, I can see my Azure virtual WAN hubs in a single glance. These are the things that are managed by Microsoft. I can see secured virtual hubs when I apply policy. Again, I can get very granular control over my environment from a network perspective. How secure are my networks? Again, we're looking at hub and spoke, peering our virtual networks. How does that look? Did we cover everything? I can manage my virtual firewalls. See if they're peered. How am I doing? What's my posture? All of that. And all I did was go to a single dashboard. I can look at my inventory. From a single view, all my monitored resource. It is resource centric. I can filter, sort, cross-reference, all of that. I can filter by any number of things, resource groups, tags. I can filter by recommendations, specific vulnerabilities. I can export it. So I can put it in a CSV. So I could build a report from it. Or I could work off of it. Like most of us security people, we export the CSV, and then we go line by line and check off everything we need to do to fix it. I can build workbooks, reports, all of that. I can assign tags from here. Again, centric, dashboard centric, so that it's in that single view for me to drill into. When we look at inventory, again, cloud is periodically going to analyze the security state of all those resources to identify potential vulnerabilities. It then provides you with recommended remediation tasks for fixing those. When any resource has an outstanding recommendations, they'll appear in that inventory. Again, the total number of resources connected to Security Center, all my unhealthy, all my unmonitored, and all my unregistered are going to be shown in that inventory view. So I can see it right from here. I can sort, I can filter, I can see I have 1,904 total resources, 318 are unhealthy. None are unmonitored and none are unregistered. So I can now drill into these and say, show me what the status of this device is. What are you complaining about? What are the recommendations specific to that resource? Now you can see here a simple demo filtering through. We identified machines tagged with environment. Look at those recommendations. Are they missing a log analytics machine? How many are tagged with that specific tag? How many have that specific CVE article? All in a simple filter. And I can filter to the identified resource. Now, looking at information protection, the graph on this tile shows resource types that have been scanned by Azure Purview. Yes, you do have to buy Purview. But again, I'm going to see all that sensitive information. It's a unified governance service that you manage and govern your on-prem, multi-cloud, software as a service, all of that in a holistic, up-to-date map. We can see all of it. The discovery, sensitive data classification. It is end-to-end data lineage. I get all my insights, all of that information that security officers are going to want to see in that bird's eye view. And here's what it looks like. It's going to present me a nice graph of everything. We can see we have credit card numbers being, we have all these different things and where they exist. Notated here, this is an endpoint. Data from Defender for endpoint is actually marked with that endpoint. But I can see all the different devices here. I can see everything going on. And all I did was drill into a pane in a dashboard that took me here so that I could see everything that Purview is seeing. Governing all of that, protecting this information. We should have tags around all of this information. DLP notifications to say, hey, you've got potential data leakage. This is all something that we can look at and govern with Purview. Again, quick fix recommendations. You're going to get recommendations on how you can better secure your environment. That specific resource, everything that applies to it. You can follow the step-by-step directions, or in many cases, you could use the quick fix option. It's just that lightning bolt. Click the lightning bolt, select the recommendation, and then from the unhealthy resources tab, select the resources you want to implement it on, and then click remediate. Boom, you're done. Well, I'd verify it was done, but in essence, you're done. Now, would I do this again without reading the steps? No. I want to understand what it's implementing. I want to understand what it might break, what it's fixing. And I'll do it just so I know. I want to make sure I understand fully what it's going to do before I implement it in my environment. If anything looks fishy to me, makes my antenna twitch, I'm going to go talk to whomever owns that asset and say, hey, look, I'm getting some strange stuff here. And I want to know if I follow these steps, is your app, your server going to break? No. Oh, awesome. Great. Fix. Again, these lightning bolts. Opening all of this up for fix recommendations, I can fix them all. I don't even have to do them one by one. I can just pick the resource, apply it. Anything that has this lightning bolt offers you quick fix. The rest, you're going to have to read. And you're going to have to implement the steps. But again, it's all about automation. How fast can I get this done? Again, you're going to choose your resources. What is it you want to fix? And then click remediation steps. looking at multi-cloud. So when we look at multi-cloud, different things that exist in cloud environments, you have Azure Arc. It's free. Azure Arc for servers, for Kubernetes, and for data services. These are agents that you will install so that you can manage all of that architecture from a single point. They will appear as if they exist in the cloud. Azure Arc is going to allow you to extend whatever you're doing in Azure to your on-prem, to Google, to AWS, all of that. So if I have all these compliance standards that I have to be compliant with for regulatory reasons, if I use Azure Arc, I'm going to see these, whatever exists in these 3 other places, and I can apply my policy. How cool is that? I can put in server protection on all my VMs. Defender for servers. It's all around threat detection. And what's cool about that? It actually has Qualys scanners built into it. So I don't need to buy Qualys. It'll scan the system for me because I deployed this to my VMs. And it's going to continuously scan them and continuously tell me, hey, you're not compliant. This is what you need to fix. Then you have automation and management at scale, SIM. So I can integrate with any SIM, but Microsoft Sentinel is built in to your Azure cloud environment. All you have to do is give it a log analytic workspace and deploy it. Figure out how much and how long you're going to store. But all these products we've been talking about natively integrate with Sentinel. I don't have to export them to a hub, export them here, spool data there. It's all integrated in a single ecosystem. So looking at subscriptions for multi-cloud, again, I pointed this out. I have 73 Azure, 4 AWS, 4 Google Cloud. Looking at all 7,336 alerts. How many of you think you could get through 7,336 alerts in a single work day? Yeah, I don't think I could. That's going to take a long time. But like any product that I've ever worked with, there's always human upfront cost. You have to tune the products you are deploying for false positives. Once you've done that, so for instance, Defender, I'm probably going to get, the minute I deploy it, I'm probably going to get alerts based on homegrown software and things like that, that I need to write exceptions for. Once I've done all of that, I could make sure it blocks everything, not just monitor. Again, I was talking about integration. All of these products, you saw single pane of glass for all that Defender ecosystem, Secure Score, Purview, all of that, firewall. But how do I correlate all that data together with something else? Now, all of this extended detection and response across email, endpoint, SQL, server, apps, IoT, you name it, right? Microsoft 365 Defender, Defender for cloud. Microsoft Sentinel. Okay, now all of this is natively integrated, but I have on-prem firewalls. I might have proxy servers. I might have other stuff. That's not in this ecosystem, but I can integrate it. The majority is in this ecosystem. Even multi-cloud, if I'm using Azure Arc, those logs are coming back into here, into Azure. So it's going to be natively integrated here. But what about my third parties? There's all sorts of ways to integrate third party. And there are tons of already pre-built connectors for many of the commonly used products. All I have to do is deploy the connector, read the instructions, and then I truly have a single pane of glass for my SIM, my SOAR, to where I can write automation, logic apps, I can design workbooks, I can design custom correlation rules to say, hey, if I see, this ATP alert followed by, a brute force followed by something, generate an event. Because that's bad. That's lateral movement, whatever. But it's all built in. This is all going to communicate. There's artificial intelligence, threat intel built into these products. And I'm sending them to a single point that will aggregate them all and storing them for compliance reasons and all of that into Sentinel. Now, do you have to use Sentinel? No. But you would have to spool out all of this data somewhere else if you're using a third-party SIM. Again, it's about increasing fidelity. Fidelity is huge when it comes to detections in XDR, SIM, all of that. I can look for SQL injection because I have all the logs. I can look for everything in this environment. I can spool server logs so that I can see who actually RDP'd to a box. Not only that, Sentinel actually has user entity behavioral analysis built into it. All you have to do is turn it on. So RDP. And I was talking about I can see who RDP'd. RDP could be very noisy depending on the environment. I don't want to see every RDP. What I really want to see is people who don't normally RDP, right? That's a user behavior thing. So I could use a UEBA rule that shows it's abnormal for this user to RDP. There are other ways, other things that you can do. For me, a SIM, you're only limited by your imagination. Business use cases, all of those things you need to detect because these are individual things. How do I correlate that across the environment to see that it's a problem and not just one system? That's where SIM comes in. What's abnormal related to something else? It is comprehensive threat protection across Azure, across hybrid workloads. So you can see any server, Azure VMs, Kubernetes, app services, SQL, storage, Synapse, all of that. We have some public previews for Postgres, MySQL, Maria, IoT, Key Vault. Better be protecting that Key Vault. Why? Because that's the keys to the kingdom. If I can get into your Key Vault, what's the first thing you need to do to secure the Key Vault? Put a firewall in front of it. Access restriction. I can see all of this threat protection from Defender for Cloud in a single, essence, a single pane of glass about everything that Defender is monitoring, every product around that provides value around that secure score. Workload protection. cloud workload protection is integrated with Defender for Cloud. It is intelligent protection for your workloads running on Azure, on-prem, or other cloud environments. Again, it's all about that integration. It's all about being able to manage it so I can see how my cloud is actually performing. What does it look like? What are the things it's doing? Is it protected? What are the things I need to fix? Again, it's hybrid. So I can see on-prem. I can see other clouds. They're prioritized alerts. You get insights into all those threats. What is it? Why is it important? All from that single dashboard that I can just drill into. Defender for servers. Protect Linux and Windows. So, reduce your open ports. Just-in-time access. So I don't need to leave those ports open all the time. Use adaptive network hardening to actually only open those ports when needed. Block malware with adaptive application controls. Kind of comes down to the work smarter, not harder. Again, protect those servers and clients with Defender for Endpoint. Protect Linux servers. Looking at things that people commonly do, like brute force against a box. If they're successful, they are now on that VM and they actually have a foothold in your environment. How long is it going to take you to know they've done that? What if you have a managed service provider managing a third-party product on certain systems? You don't have direct access to the console. What if it got missed? How long will it take before somebody finally figures out somebody is on your box? Probably by the time they do lateral movement to a system that you can see. How long is that? They could sit dormant for months. We look at just-in-time, utilizing network security groups so I could build those rules around what you're allowed to do. Azure firewall rules, manage those ports. Limit the open ports. Always limit the open ports. Don't do rules that have broad scope, like anything from the internet can use port 389. Yeah, no. There are other things you could do that we talk about when we do cloud adoption framework, where you're actually building bastion hosts and tunneling and express route. All of that come into play. But Defender for Cloud can certainly make a big hit when it comes to protecting with adaptive network, adaptive application controls. Again, hardening the machines against malware threats. Protect them with advanced threat protection. Turn on those built-in vulnerability assessments on those. Don't just deploy it and leave it off. You want it to continuously scan so that you're instantly or near real time notified of things that might be misconfigured, things that might be broken. That Qualys scanner scans continuously to make sure that you have everything in place. Pay attention to that. Vulnerabilities, look at those. And I can drill into those. I can see everything in a single glance. Defender for SQL. Again, protect your SQL servers. For most of us, this is where the important data lives, in databases. Encrypt in motion, encrypt at rest, protect it from SQL injection and other types of bad things people can do to a SQL server. We don't want them in here. We don't want them stealing our data and then finding out from the FBI that our data is for sale on the dark web. Defender for storage. This is where we're keeping everything. We're storing all sorts of stuff in storage. It gives me contextual alerts about attempted breaches, about things that might have been breached. It gives me relevant recommendations to harden the storage environment. It utilizes advanced intelligence from threat intel to tell me, hey, this is a known bad actor trying to access your storage. Block it. Defender for containers. It scans Docker images for libraries that might have vulnerabilities, and it doesn't use static analysis. It uses dynamic analysis, where it looks at the image as a complete entity, because there's going to be less false positives by doing dynamic analysis than static analysis. Hey, there's malware out there that knows, how it's being analyzed. Dynamic is a better way to analyze, and usually malware can't bypass it. Notice I said usually. But again, they're going to give you comprehensive information. It scans it at runtime, because the attacker's not going to hide at runtime, because they want to inject, they want to steal, they want to do something. So these are things we look at. Kubernetes. Kubernetes become pretty much the de facto standard for deploying and managing software in a cloud. So Defender for Kubernetes, looking at your cluster nodes, looking at your runtime detection so that you can see and auditing everything. Mandate security and audit best practices for your workload. Control policy management. These are all things that can be done with Defender for Kubernetes, so that I can even scan these containers. I can apply policies, CIS benchmarks, so I can assess, am I in compliance with policies? If not, fix it. So looking at an attack matrix for Kubernetes specifically, again, initial access, they're going to look for credentials, compromised images. They're going to look at that config, try and reconfigure it. Anything that's an application vulnerability, exposed dashboards. And you can see, I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can see they're looking at execution, persistence, privilege, defense evasion, credential access, discovery. The big thing is everybody wants to laterally move, upgrade their credentials, steal or destroy your data. Depends what they're really looking to do. Defender for Cloud also protects things like you've got Defender for Resource Manager, so it can monitor and manage all that. Defender for DNS, Defender for Key Vault. You need to protect that key vault. That's the keys to the kingdom. The bad actor gets in there, they own all the keys. IoT, the Internet of Things. Microsoft acquired a company called CyberX to secure brownfield as well as greenfield devices. You know, we want to be able to secure what can't be changed and what is just like, free form, do whatever you want. So we're looking at the asset inventory, vulnerability management, threat detection, integrate it with Sentinel so that you can see everything that's going on. The Internet of Things has really changed a lot of our cybersecurity. Now, I mentioned Forrester in the beginning of this presentation. There is a whole study they did. Yeah, this has been renamed to Defender for Cloud. It used to be Security Defender or Security Center in Azure, or Azure Defender and Security Center. But now it's Defender for Cloud. This was done when it was still called the other two, but it's still a very valid study. Now, I'm not an accountant. Present value, net present value, I don't care, nor do I understand most of that. I'm not an accountant. But Gina will be happy to share this full report with you. But when I look at this study, this is what I'm interested in. Security Center cost benefit savings, 25% reduction in the risk of a security breach. Hey, I'm all about that. I'm a security guy. That means I don't have to worry 25% more than I was. 50% reduction in time to threat mitigation. That's awesome. 50% less of my time running down the rabbit hole, trying to figure out what went wrong, where it is, and how to fix it. 30% reduction in security policy and compliance management time. Hey, I've been talking about policy since we started this. 30% less time worrying about how I'm going to meet compliance. But you know what my boss really cares about? $216,000 worth of annual spend reduction in all the tools I buy. That's what they care about. I care about this because I'm the guy doing all the work. They care about this. How long does it take me to recoup my cost? That's what this net present value is all about. And they're saying 6 months payback. My boss cares about that. Those are the things that we talk about here. Those are the things we all care about. Now, we at Talon actually do security assessments. We go through education workshops to explain cloud adoption framework, zero trust, Defender, so that you can get a very in-depth. This is just a broad overview. We'll conduct an assessment into the environment, into your Azure environment, tell you some of the gaps, all the gaps, and we'll document all those findings, present it in a nice 2-hour presentation to show you where you're possibly lacking. We'll give you a proposal to help you fix all of that. So I want to thank everybody for their time today. Again, if you have questions, Gina shared a file in the chat. But if you have questions, again, chat's open. If not, I don't have anything else for all of you. I want to thank every one of you for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.